Well, hello and welcome. I'm Sue Britz,
And I'm Tina Lookbakk. Welcome to Retired.
the podcast where we talk about what life is like when we put on new tread, new wheels that move us to our next adventure.
So, what is our next adventure today, Sue?
Well, I don't know about an adventure, but we're going to talk about how do teachers behave in public. This came to mind because the other day I was somewhere and there was a kid out of control running around, and your instincts, your gut as a teacher, even though I am a retired teacher, is immediate. I mean, I feel it in my body immediately. It's the teacher stink eye. It is, I'm about to stand up and say something to the child, to the parent.
Where were you located?
I was at an outdoor restaurant.
I knew it. I knew you were going to say a restaurant because that's where it gets my little
And
panties in a bunch.
so that's what we're going to talk about. That instinct in your body, and then how you feel about it, how it's perceived by others, and what can we do about it? And is there a difference being retired, no longer teachers, no longer having to be on that yard duty, watching behavior, monitoring behavior, making sure everyone is safe and treated correctly? Yeah, so that's our topic today.
So, the first thing that came to mind was a restaurant. So, that's why I had to ask you because I think that is where I have been the most perturbed. And I think the thing that really sends me over the edge is when you're at a booth and the kid leans over without the parents doing
Yeah,
anything and they're in your personal booth space
yeah,
and they say nothing, they do nothing, and then you glare and give the stink eye and nothing happens because they know that nothing's going to happen. And you're trying to just ignore it, but then you can't. And then pretty soon it's like little Vesuvius. It's starting to bubble up and you're like, what do I do? And I think it becomes this shocking realization that nothing is going to be done by those parents because they wouldn't have allowed it in the first place. So, how do you deal with it?
here it is. The thing is, as a teacher, I think I react differently than I do now. And I have to say, I thought that, because I remember even in the summertime, my teacher instincts were always hot and on, and I would always say something, always respond, always do something because I was so much in that role of being a teacher. But being retired from teaching, I don't feel that instinct as a teacher anymore. I feel the instinct, I think, as a human being more, and I'm
Mhm.
not feeling like I need to correct all the behavior. It I'll only correct it as it impacts me, or if it is hurting someone
Dangerous.
else. Yeah, dangerous for the kid, but also if it's hurtful to someone else, if the child is hurtful to someone else, I will step up for that. We've talked about how we do that whenever there's a right. But I think as a teacher, is that if the number of times that that child can behave inappropriate like that, and it's seen by witnessed by adults and not corrected, we know that when that kid comes to your classroom, it takes that much more to, I would have to say, civilize the child to
Hmm.
what common norms are in society. It becomes very difficult, and there are more and more kids like that today, in my
I
opinion.
think that's true. And I saw it at the tail end, even before COVID. I've just seen an escalation of student behavior that's just over the top.
Yeah, when you
Like,
empower that kind of behavior, it just grows. It gets cemented
and
in who they are.
yes, and the older they get, the harder it is to have a chance at all.
Hmm. Yep.
Hmm.
So, do you say something now that you are retired from teaching?
I think in general, yes, I would politely say something now, because I think it's just part of being older.
Hmm.
because you start realizing what your rights are. And since it's a public space, my right is the space that I'm paying for, and it is to have it be a joyful experience, right? And so it's within my right to do it because they're not respecting a booth, especially, is a boundary. I mean, it couldn't be more of a boundary. So yes, I would. I would.
Yeah, and it's I think the key here is that being respectful. Your response is respectful, and if someone else goes off on that, well then that's on them. But being respectful is the way to do it. So yeah, the part that gets me though is that your teacher stink eye, because it's stronger even than a parent stink eye sometimes, doesn't work. It's not as effective as it used to be. Have you found that?
Yes, but you know what? This goes back to this place, and I think we talked about it on another episode. But I think at least where we used to work, but especially because I think we started to teach our kids that they are human beings, which they are, and they are equivalent to adults. I think that that's part of the way we've been raising our children in this newer generation. So you're, at least in our affluent, very educated town, I think that many parents want our children to have voices and to stand up for what they think is wrong. The problem is that when you're 7 and you say no candy in the room, they will stand up and say that that is wrong instead of understanding that the bigger concept behind it, that A, you shouldn't have candy, B, it's against the school rules, C, all these reasons. But they will the I think that's the problem, that the kids feel that it is when they within their right to speak that truth and that they can confront you with it. And I think that's what started to deteriorate, I thought, in the whole realm of the world we were teaching in, that everything was becoming confronted. Like if they didn't like the way you taught the math problem, or I mean, it was like very many kids started to have very many voices for everything, not just some things.
Do you think that's a symptom of what's going on more largely in our society as a whole? I mean, you look at adult behavior and how people are so intolerant and so righteous about everything rather than just being kind and respectful in society. It's now,
Wow.
why should I have to do that? Who are you to tell me? Yeah, all those things. Yeah. What do you think?
Oh, I think you just opened a big box that's very true. I hadn't really thought about how it's paralleling in general. That's true. And Sue, I'm not saying that we can't voice things, but I think that there's a confrontation even with young kids.
Mm.
It becomes confrontational instead of, can
Um,
I please at this time tell you how I feel, like the 7-year-old. If the 7-year-old could say it at the right time, not in the middle of a lesson, hold off till recess and politely state it, I would be able to hear it. So I think, and as we are talking about adults, same thing. Please state your opinion. You have the right to do so, but please do it respectfully, and then please respect my opinion as well. And I think that's part of the problem too, is there's not a mutual respecting.
yeah. Yeah. There's been a lot of loss of manners and social conduct, appropriate social conduct in the world, and it's I think it's a symptom of all that. But I have to say, when you teach children that way, and children are allowed to behave that way, it's pretty much cemented in their personage as they get older. It's very hard to untrain, you know.
So, Sue, how do you feel about society in as a whole? If you were to speak up and state your opinion about something, how do you think it's being received? Do you think it's different nowadays, or do you think people receive it differently? Is there a change with how people receive opinions?
Do you think that, are you asking in the teacher context or outside of that?
Both, actually.
Okay, um, well, I'm not a teacher right now, but uh, generally, except for some pushback on, like kid behavior that's, kind of inappropriate with the social norms. But generally in the classroom, kids will listen. I mean, they're going to hear, and they're also going to, certain kids tune out, other kids go home and talk about the things that they
Mm,
hear in class every day. And, that's always held true. Um, Opinion, it is interesting because, I mean, this is what we're doing. We're talking on a podcast and we're talking about our opinions and our
true.
recollections and our ideas and stuff. I haven't heard a lot of feedback, uh, uh, negative feedback at all. Um, when I post things on social media, especially things that are political, I might get some pushback on things. But my friends, the people I conduct myself with, they're all very respectful and positive about it. It is for me. I mean, it's the way that I was raised, is to be respectful. You're not all going to have the same opinion, nor should you.
Right.
You need to have different ways of thinking and approaching the world, and you need to be safe enough to say your opinions, and then to have your ears open so you can hear what's said, so that you can reflect on it and really think about what it is you believe and why. So, you know, personally, I haven't felt um, any pushback. I'm also very careful
Yes, me
about what
too.
I say, um,
And
and
with whom and where.
and it's also kind of hard, if you're always cutting off your questions, your opinions, your ideas, because you're afraid. That's not good. You've
Hmm.
got to be able to have a clear idea in your mind what it is, what's worth saying, so that you can, and then hear the comments that come. So, what about you? Are you feeling like there's a difference in being able to state an opinion, or
I think as part of my personal journey, um, I think that my natural inclination is to keep comments and opinions to myself. And as I've gotten older, I've realized, especially in the last few years, that if you have friendships where you don't feel safe to state your opinions in a healthy, kind way, and yet, for instance, I know that I can hear very radically different opinions from mine and I'm respectful. Um, but if I can't say my truth, then I'm learning that that's probably not a relationship I can pursue or continue in. So my friendships have been changing over the years, and it's changed because I need to be able to say what I think too.
Mhm.
So I'm incredibly patient with other people, and now I'm beginning to demand that patience be back, to
well,
be given back.
it's really appropriate, because if you don't feel safe, that's just a real sign of not a very dysfunctional relationship. But also, the it's important to hear ideas that are different than your own, whether they be very just subtle differences or strong differences. So, from people that you respect and want to hear from, it opens up your way of thinking, and it really solidifies how you think about these ideas, these opinions. So, um, but it has to be civil. It really does. Back to teacher behavior in public. Let me ask you this one.
Hmm,
So,
I'm afraid.
this is the classic. You're in the supermarket. You're walking down the aisle with your cart, and you've got a 6 pack of wine, not even beer, wine in the cart. Because of course, when you have a 6 pack, you put them in that little box, and you get another discount on for having have bought six. So you're going along, and then you maybe also have some chips and salsa, because maybe you're going to have some friends over, and then all these other items in your cart could be maybe some female hygiene products.
Yes.
And you're going through the supermarket, and you come across students and their parents. Have you had that experience?
Yes.
And
And it's uncomfortable. Um, And it shouldn't be, but it is because it's so personal. And yeah, you just kind of, I'm thinking of this particular time where I had a cart full of feminine everything. And I just remember, like, I'm sure my face was even flushed, but in a way, I'm again, aging has helped because, oh my gosh, that's such a human thing. And it's kind of sad that there's even a reaction to it. Why is that embarrassing? That's what life is. That's who we are as people. So why am I embarrassed? And if I have preparation H in my cart, that's a part of life. And right? So it's changing in that respect. And I wonder if that's something that we as teachers, parents, why are we not making it just normal?
So I've also had just the normal reaction when you're in the supermarket and a student sees you, you're out of context, and they do this double take look and like, what are you doing here? Like, you're a human being and you go grocery shopping. That just doesn't exist. So it's always funny. But then you layer in the feminine hygiene products or some bottles of wine, and it's a whole different story.
And again, I think what makes it awkward is if the students' parents also had alcohol and had alcohol, but for families that are raised where alcohol is not something that is embraced in the house, then you're also getting judgment. And I think that makes it awkward too, where now they're like, oh, she drinks, or you know what I'm saying? And that I
Yes.
think is the next level of the alcohol part that's difficult.
Well, I've also had it work the other way where they have some wine, I have some wine, they ask me my opinion about it, I'm happy to share, and you're like, "Yes, okay, would you like to come over and and share?" Anyhow, no, so, Tina,
Yes.
rules for teachers, 1914.
Oh God.
You will not marry during the term of your contract. You are not to keep company with men. You must be home between the hours of 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. unless at a school function. You may not loiter downtown in any of the ice cream stores. You may not travel beyond the city limits unless you have permission of the chairman of the school board. You may not ride in carriages or automobiles with any man except your father or brother. You may not smoke cigarettes. You may not dress in bright colors. You may, under no circumstances, dye your hair. You must wear at least 2 petticoats. Your dresses may not be any shorter than 2 inches above the ankles. Okay, the last rule, yeah, it talks about keeping the classroom clean, neat and clean and all that stuff. Nothing about like your lesson plans or anything else. All about your behavior and the expectation for women as teachers. Your mouth is agape. What are your thoughts?
I'm so on the verge of crying out of sheer anger because I'm putting myself back at that time in life, and to think of the lack of freedom, the powerlessness, and then of course it's a man that's in charge and you're signing, you have to go ask for permission on one of them, like to
Well,
be out later for a school function. Like, how dare you? Those are our rights. Like, wow. Um and to even have to wear petticoats, you're told what to wear. I mean, there there are exceptions even now. Like, I'm not so sure that all of our body parts need to be hanging out as teachers. um I don't think any body parts really need to be hanging out. But well, maybe they can. I don't know. Maybe I got to revisit that one too. Maybe we should all walk around as nudists. But anyway,
yeah,
I'm just
no,
kidding.
no.
But the point is to be told how to wear the dress, not to mention that we had to wear a dress in the first place.
Right.
Now, let's say, as it is where you're living, it's 112 degrees and you have to put on 2 petticoats. So now you're sweltering on top of sweltering. I mean, are you kidding me? Oh my gosh. Okay, your thoughts?
Well, it just makes me so grateful to be living when and where I am right now. Um, you know, the the all the restrictions that really limit you to the role only as teacher because how are you going to have any kind of social life? I guess you would go to church to find a potential husband, and then as soon as you marry, then your teaching profession is over. It makes me wonder about, the longevity, like who that person's going to be. It really stunts who they are, unless of course that's who they want to be. They want to be alone and just teach the whole time. But it's so constricting. But again, this was also other women in other roles were controlled as well. This thing of the marrying now, I remember my
I know.
mom, she was the first and only one in her family that went to college, and she decided she wanted to go to college. She worked in the summers and earned her money and sent herself to school, and she went to teachers college, graduated, had a the teaching credential, and she taught for all of, I don't know, 6 months maybe, because
Whoa.
she also, coming out of college, got married, and of course, got pregnant. She's a good Catholic. She got pregnant. um, nobody, yeah, she came out of, so at 6 months, she's pregnant. As soon as she starts showing that she had to leave the job, it was a requirement in those days even that she had to leave her job because it was unseemly for you to be pregnant in a classroom. It's just, um, I'm speechless.
Speechless. That's it. I don't know what to say either, except thank God. And nowadays, and I remember my mother, she was much older. So she had me, I was born in 68. She was 36. So she was a lot more old school. And when I was pregnant, even, she would make these really derogatory remarks about people that were showing off their belly. And that was like not that long ago. I was pregnant in the end of the 90s. So my mom was still holding that space of what's appropriate. And I was looking at I think it was around that time that Demi Moore had the profile of her pregnant belly, and I'm like, that's freaking gorgeous. Like, why are we not flaunting the body? Like,
Yep.
that's also a very natural thing to pretend that we're not pregnant. Like, what is it just cracks me up that the natural bodily functions of what we do and are as humans, there's some sort of shame in our culture that is getting better. We're dropping some of the shame, but the fact that we even have any for being pregnant, come on. And that's even for people that are, quote, married and doing it the, quote, right way. And there's still that stigma for some.
Right. And well, I'm looking at these rules and I'm thinking, this is you're also following these rules. You are the authority in the classroom. You are the adult. You're teaching not only the content but also, the rules of society. And so you are modeling. You're forced into modeling this really stunted version of what a woman can be, and that's disturbing to me as well.
I think what kind of hurt me a little bit in just listening to this. So let's say you've noticed in your bones that all you've ever wanted to do is teach and you would enjoy it. You got this degree, you're in that classroom, and it's the passion of your life. And then you meet the person, and now you have to decide. You have to give up on yourself or you have to choose the man. That's a terribly sad decision to have to make. And I'm sad that women had to make that decision. The man could continue on doing whatever he wants. He didn't have to stop his passion. In fact, by marrying, his passion got to continue.
That's true. However, there are rules for male teachers as well that were very strict. Not as
Oh,
strict.
good. Read them.
One of the rules for men is that they may take one evening each week for courting purposes, or 2 evenings a week if they go to church regularly. So if you showed up at church, you get to have 2 days, 2 evenings to court.
You can
Uh,
get to know people really well in 2 evenings a week. I'm
uh,
being sarcastic.
yeah. And after 10 hours in school, the teacher may spend the remaining time reading the Bible. So
Oh my God, no. Oh my.
they couldn't go to the barber. This is going back a little
Why?
farther in time. This is 1872. Besides, like the filling the lamp and cleaning of the classroom, which is there's no discussion about the content they're teaching, which is so funny. They had to lay aside money from pay in a goodly sum of his earnings for his benefit during his declining years. So they had to do their own IRA.
Retirement.
Yeah.
Wow.
Any teacher who smokes, uses liquor in any form, frequents pool or public halls, or gets shaved in a barber shop will give good reason to suspect his worth, intention, integrity, and honesty. Yeah. So the men had to be of high
They
moral
did
character
too.
in public, but they were not as limited. You know, going back to our original thing of about seeing kids in public, and there's like the kids who are misbehaving, but it's also, you know, even as a retired person, a retired teacher, I still feel like I'm under the obligation of being a mandated reporter. Do you? So teachers are
I
mandated
think just
reporters.
I know I agree, and I was just thinking. I mean, I think if I knew a kid was being abused, I would just. That's just. It's not a matter of mandating. It's a matter of you have to. Like someone's got to look out for kids, and I don't know that that's my teacher self. Even I don't even think I needed that training. I
Right.
mean, it's good, but I think that just how could I go to bed at night if I suspect I couldn't sleep if I didn't speak up and say something to protect a child? A child is a child.
Right. The difference is, though, I think as teachers, you you get to become expert in understanding student or kids' behavior, and you can. There are the with mandated training, you are taught to look for these signs, and so you're going
Right.
to see things more often, and you're required to report it. So the same could be said. You know, you could suspect something, but in the realm of like normal behavior, this could be quote normal behavior. So do you take that step or not? That's a question. I'd say trust your gut.
Yeah, I think so too. The gut's hardly ever wrong, and
Yeah.
especially with something like that. That was a good question.
Okay. And what else do you have for teacher behavior in public? What comes to mind?
Okay, a few things. I remember one of our colleagues that we both worked with enjoyed not living in the town so that she could have her own separate life and not be found at the movie theater, not be found at the restaurants. What I think is fascinating, considering our town really was 60-ish thousand people, I didn't run into too many all the time. Like it never really interfered. And here I'm living in my little town and I don't really run into many teenagers who were former students for the 3 months that I taught high school. Um, so I'm kind of surprised that I don't see that many. So either I'm so introverted and I never get out, or I just don't go at the times that other people do. I don't know. I think it's the funniest thing. However, I don't really like it because I am an introvert, because I feel like then I have to be on and then I have to smile and I put on a persona. I still feel like I have to step into the persona. And really I'm not very social. I mean, I am, but I'm not, but I don't want to be. And does that make sense? That
Absolutely.
part is hard.
Well, and it's
Yeah.
it's true. I there's a number of stories that I have. That same friend I think was one who's out on a beach in the on the coast and on a secluded beach that no one knows about and with a bow and here comes this family that they
Oh
know
God.
and their kids and yeah, okay, really? We're on the secluded beach. There's no one else around and here they come with their beach towels and everything. "Oh, hi, how are you?" Yeah. It happens. I remember one time I was going to Hawaii and at the airport, of course, that one family and the kid that, is the reporter kid, the kid that observes everything and yeah, and the family that talks about everything to everybody. And
Oh,
there
great.
they were, and there they were sitting right behind me in the seats, and then we got off and we went to the, hotel, and opened the elevator door, and there they were. So they were in
Oh
not only on your
no.
airplane, but in your hotel. And yeah, talk about no personal life. Yeah.
And so then it also requires you to monitor conversation,
Yes.
because you can't just talk to the person that you're with who you do trust, because now you don't want that information out there in the world. So now you've had to monitor, right? Because then they're going to say, "Hey, did you know that senora whatever is like da 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 da." I mean, that's a terrible thing. So now that kind of takes away from your ability to be free.
Yeah, and to see
So
you in
in a
your
way,
bathing suit and all that stuff too, that's a real bonus.
wait, repeat that. I didn't
And
hear what you
and
said.
for the kids to see and the families to see you in your bathing suit, wow, that's a big
Oh,
bonus
even
too.
worse. Even worse. Right, even worse. Or another example too is, swearing. In the
Uh-huh.
classroom, there's this monitor, and I am actually quite a fluent, proficient swearer. Like but I don't like to do it out there in the world if my kids are hearing me, because again, that's not good in terms of keeping this level of respect, because it kind of puts me into the more human category, right?
Mhm.
So I think that that's part of being a teacher too, is we don't get to quite be human. We have to monitor our humanity, our normalness.
Yep. Teacher behavior in public. Last thing I'm thinking of that just came to mind as you're talking about that, how we represent ourselves, is how when you are on jury duty and you're a teacher, they always impanel me. It's crazy. They love the teachers on the juries, and so you're stuck because you are a stickler for rules and following conventions and being observant and knowledgeable. But you're also compassionate and caring. You are a perfect jurist for either side, and so they want you on the panel. And that's a burden. I'm sorry, it's a burden, especially during the school year. You're like, "Oh my gosh, really we're in the middle of this important lesson, or here comes this test that we're having to do, and it's the state testing, and they always do better if they're with their own teacher, let alone a sub can't administer the test. So it really puts a burden on everybody that when the teacher's gone. And then they want to eat up your unemployed time during the summer to do that. It's like, wow, okay, teacher behavior.
I've dodged the bullet. I've come in so close, and then like I've been dismissed. So I have still not spent time on a jury.
Well, you're unusual
I think so.
because I look over on the jury selection room and like how many teachers are in there. All these people that I know. My goodness, who they are. Yeah. And then you get impaneled, and then there's someone who else is a teacher or an educator of, yeah.
Well, in summation, now that we are in the retired part, um, are you more authentically yourself, or do you still walk around guarded?
Well, I think, stepping out of the role of a teacher permanently, it is a lot easier to let things go and to be more myself. I also think it comes with age. And so that's why I'm asking you,
Yes.
being a little bit younger, and, I, well, you and I are similar in that we're not around a bunch of kids anymore, little kids, and
Mm-mm.
I don't. So your behavior in front of kids is always going to be different, I think, than behavior around adults. And yeah, I don't. It doesn't stop me anymore. Around kids, I'm think especially around kids that I know, I probably would still be calling them on their behavior. I'd still be, yeah, respectfully calling them on their behavior. I'd love to hear what other teachers are going through.
Oh, I would too. I wish they would write in on this one.
That wraps up this episode of Retired. Thanks for listening.
Join us next week on our next adventure. Until then, please feel free to lend your feedback or ask questions by emailing us at retiredpodcastnewtread@gmail.com. You're invited to follow us on Facebook at Retired Podcast New Tread. Check the show notes for links and contact information.
Retired is co-hosted by Sue Britz and Tina Lokkbakk. It is produced, directed, and edited by me, Sue Britz. Music and graphics are by me too. Please click to subscribe so that you won't miss your chance to
Join our retired road trip.